Most finance teams cannot see what is spent on a purchase order until the invoice arrives. What that means is by the time the CFO sees the spend, you already owe the money to the vendor. Now, I've been working with procurement and finance team for more than 20 years. And in my own experience, I feel the only way to get complete visibility is to have a purchase order process and tracking it all the way from the time you put in a request to the time it is paid. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how you can set up a step-by-step process so you have complete PO visibility starting from the time somebody requested, what is ordered, what is received at any given moment, so that you can stop dealing with surprise invoices for good. Let's get into it. Now, a lot of time, the reason surprise invoices keeps on happening is because companies do not have a purchase request process. The request is not even going into a system where they can run a report and figure out what exactly is going on. A typical process looks like this. An employee calls a vendor, have the product delivered, or you put something on the credit card and you have no visibility on it till the time the billing statement arrives. So what that means is you have surprise invoices showing up all the time and you're not able to plan your cash flow. So before you get into any sort of reporting or around spend, the first thing to do is to have a central place for entering all the purchase requests and get that visibility. A process where an employee puts in a request before they actually spend the money. So no matter how small it is, they are putting in the request so you can centrally capture all the information at one place, which typically captures what is the reasoning for the purchase, when do they need it, who's the vendor from where they're purchasing it, amount, and everything else. And if you can proactively tie it to your budgets, that is definitely helpful from making sure that you don't go over budget. What that means for the finance team is now you can see everything at one single place. All your committed spend, no matter how you're paying the vendor, whether it's on a credit card, whether you have terms with the vendors and so on. If you have a process for capturing all the purchase requests in one place, you now have visibility into your committed spend. We have seen this many times that companies try to put a purchase request process, but they completely fail. The number one reason they fail is because they set up a process that is so difficult for an employee to follow that employees either don't follow it or find workarounds around the process. Now, for example, if I need to buy a $40 box of pens and I have to spend 15 minutes filling up a form, printing it, scanning it, getting it approved, I'm probably wondering, do I really need it? So having that such a long process, people either then start spending money on their credit cards and ask for reimbursements. I mean, really ask for forgiveness later. So you want to design a process that is easy for employees to use. That's number one. Number two is you want to have self-approval limits. So if you're going to set up a purchase request approval process and you're asking your employees to put in a request for everything, make sure you're giving them some limit under which there's no approval required. So again, the example of a $40 pen, if I need to buy such a small purchase, do I really need an approval or can I just buy on my own? Our recommendation is you set up a limit of maybe $150 to $200 per month so that employees can just purchase that without asking for approval. Now, when it comes to making it easy for employees to use, you want to make it as easy as their normal shopping experience on like an Amazon or Staples, where they can simply pick what they want to buy and place an order. What you do not want to do is have a system where they go to Amazon, they, for example, and they pick up the description, copy it, put it in a form, copy the link of the purchase, put it back in the request. It just takes so much time. So if you're using a system like ProcureDesk, which is a purchasing and AP automation software, it has that experience built in. Like for example, we have close to 200 plus punch out catalogs. And the way a punch out catalog works is it allows for the same experience which your employees already have. So think about this way, a punch out, you click on a vendor logo, for example, Amazon. It takes you to the Amazon website. You select what you want to purchase, with one big difference is in this case, it brings you back for approval. So all your controls are stays in ProcureDesk in terms of approvals and everything else. And employees don't have to do anything except just shop and everything gets copied automatically back to the cart. That is experience we're talking about. It goes a long way in driving adoption because you're giving a process to your employees that they are going to use versus a process that is very cumbersome. Now, you need to track the process from purchase request to purchase order. So we'll talk about why that is important. First of all, if you're not tracking the purchase request, you don't know whether the order is placed, whether the vendor has shipped the product, or when they're going to ship the product, or maybe the pricing has changed and you just don't know all that. So these are the reasons why you need to track the entire life cycle from purchase request to purchase order and not just purchase request. So let's talk about step by step what needs to happen. The first thing you need to do is send the PO or the purchase order to the vendor. Most procurement systems automate this process, which means you do not have to go and fill up a PDF or any sort of form, print it out, fax it, or email it to the vendor. All that is not required. You want a system where once the request is approved, it can generate a purchase order and automatically send that to the vendor. Now, the next thing is you want to have the vendor confirm that they received it. There are different ways to do that. If you're using a punch-out system like ProcureDesk, then that is automatically built in because the purchase order gets delivered in an electronic fashion. So it's easy to track whether they actually received it or not. If that is not the case, you can always track whether the email was delivered, if you're sending via email, or email was opened. That's kind of a couple of ways you can track. But in our experience, the best way to do this is to ask the vendor to acknowledge the purchase order. It's called vendor acknowledgement. What that means is the vendor is now confirming a couple of things. Number one, they have received the purchase order. Number two, they accept the terms that you have mentioned on the purchase order, if you have any special terms and things like that. Number three is they can confirm that they can deliver the product and service on the date that you have asked for. And if there are any discrepancies, they can confirm or write back to you so you know exactly when you're going to get the product. And finally, they can also provide you with potential ship dates. This is when we're going to ship, this is the carrier, so you should expect the product by so and so date. What this does is not only from a visibility standpoint, it's good. From a planning standpoint, it gives the operation teams a lot of data to work with. So think about if you're a construction company and you need to send your crew to the customer site to do the work. Now, if you have all the information, you can just use that in your project dashboard to say, all right, now I know when I'm going to get all the product so that now I can send the crew when the product actually arrives, right? You don't want people going to a customer site and not having the product to work with. That's what vendor acknowledgement helps you solve. And now, once you have the vendor acknowledgement in place, you need a receipt process. So that way you can confirm whether the product was received or not. And we need to accrue for expenses that where we have received the product, but the vendor has not sent the invoice, we can easily do that. That is why it's super important to track the receipts of what you have ordered. The final step in the requisition to purchase process is invoice matching. Now, the vendor sends you the invoice. So what you want here is a process which captures the invoice, whether it is from an email or so on, and then run it through OCR or AI so that your team is not spending time manually entering those invoices into your accounting system or whatever system you might have. But then the most important part of this is the ability to now match the invoice with the other two documents that you already have in place. So the purchase order and the receipt. What that means for your accounting team is they don't have to go and manually match the documents or try to figure out, should we pay this invoice or not? If you have a system like ProcureDesk in place, what it does is it takes the invoice, it matches with the receipt and the purchase order, and it confirms a couple of things. First of all, are we paying the price that we agreed to pay? If you order a widget for $100 and the invoice is $120, that raises a question on why the price increased, which means now we need to include a stakeholder for reviewing it. Your AP team probably won't know why the price changed. Number two is, let's say you ordered 10 widgets and the vendor is expensing or sending an invoice for 20. It might be an error on their side, maybe they overshipped, whatever the case might be. That's a discrepancy which somebody needs to review. That's what the matching process does for you, is give your team the ability to focus only on invoices that needs to be reviewed. Otherwise, it should automatically match and mark those invoices for approval. And real quick, if you want a procurement software that does all that what we just described today, click on the first link in the description and book a time with one of our product specialists at ProcureDesk. We'll walk you through how a procurement system can automate the entire process from purchase request, purchase order, receiving, and invoice matching. All right, so let's keep going. Now, since you have all the data in the system, your finance team should be able to use this data to run the reports they need to close books faster. So let's look at some of those reports. The first report is open order report. What that report tells you is all the spend that is committed. In the beginning, I mentioned most companies do not have visibility into their spending is because there's no PO process. Now, let's say if you have all the POs in the system, you can simply run a report which shows you, hey, these are all the purchase orders that are committed and we haven't either received it or received but it's not invoiced or it's not received yet. So an open order report can quickly tell you what is your committed spend. The second report is received but not invoiced report. This report tells you all the purchase orders that has been received but is not invoiced yet. Maybe the vendor hasn't sent you the invoice or the invoice is sitting with a stakeholder. Either way, it kind of gives you the ability to figure out what is really going on. So rather than your team chasing the different stakeholders on, hey, have we received it, and so on, now you have a system that tells you, now guess what? Your AP team can now take this data and build an accrual report based on that. Right? So that's the benefit for your finance team. All right, so the third report you need is what we call spend by category report. So think about all the materials you're buying, right? And you break it up into different chunks of categories for you to really understand where money is going. Okay, how much are we spending on office supplies? How much are you spending on payroll? Whatever the case might be. These are different buckets. So if you have a spend by category report, first of all, you can see where your money is actually going. That's number one. Number two is where exactly the pattern of spending is in terms of, is it increasing, is it decreasing, are we spending more on office supplies as compared to last month, or are there certain vendors where we are spending a lot of money all of a sudden? Idea here is to figure out, first of all, the key patterns, but number two is you might realize for the same category you have 3 different vendors, and that's your opportunity to reduce costs. And it's as simple as consolidating those 3 vendors into 1 or 2 and negotiating better pricing than that, right? So it not only helps you understand patterns, it can actually help you save money by reducing your spend. The fourth report you need is committed versus actual budgets. Now, in most environments, your CFO is actually seeing budget versus actuals at the time when you close the books, right? Because when you actually invoice and so on. The problem with that approach is, one, it is a little late. 2 is, if there is committed spend, which means you have spent the money, but you don't have an invoice in the system, you can't actually see that. So when you see a budget versus actual report in a system which captures requisitions, purchase orders, your commitments up front, now we can actually see where we are overall against a budget and what's the total actuals against that in terms of what is requested, which is still in approval, what is already committed but not invoiced yet, and what is already invoiced, which should match with what's in your accounting system. So it gives you a complete visibility rather than just a partial view of budgets. What that means is it allows you to put proactive controls from a spending standpoint so that when somebody is requesting a purchase, you can actually check how much money is left, because now you know what's being approved, what is committed, and what is already invoiced. And you can have a system that can block a purchase from happening if there is no money left, right? So it brings a proactive control in place, not just the visibility part. So now we talked about the core 4 reports. Now how are you actually using this data, right? So let's talk about some of the implications on your day-to-day. So number 1 is you can actually now plan your cash flow in much better way. Since there is no surprise invoices now, you can actually look at your committed and actual spending. So your AP aging as well as your committed spend, and then plan out the next 3 to 6 months of cash flow. So this not only helps you plan your cash flow better, it also gives confidence to senior management, board, whatever the case might be, that we have good handle on where we are spending money and we are not just showing up with surprise invoices. Number 2 is it gives you faster month-end close process. Now, if you think about month-end close, right, most finance teams are chasing invoices during the week when they try to close the books, asking stakeholders and so on, right? With a proactive process, you're actually pretty much are ready by the time you get to the month-end close week, because you already have all the data in the system, whether it is committed spend, whether it is open order reports, whether it is accruals that you need to book. What that means is now you can close books faster. We recently worked with a client where they were spending 7 to 8 days. They were using NetSuite for their accounting system. And after implementing ProcureDesk and the matching process and so on, they reduced their close time to 3 days from 7 days. So with these reports and this data all in one place, what that means is for CFO, it gives them complete visibility. For controllers, you have all the accruals in place. What that means at the end of the day, you can close your books faster. You walk in a lot more confidence into your month-end close process because you know exactly where the data is, which means you spend more time on analyzing your business trends. Where are the expenses went up or down and why, versus trying to just close books. So if you want your finance team to work with live data without any surprise invoices, click on the link below to schedule a time with one of our product specialists. On the demo, we'll show you how a procurement system can automate all the process, all from requisitions, purchase approvals, budget management, purchase orders, invoice matching, and finally how it kind of integrates with your accounting system, whether you're using QuickBooks, Sage Intacct, Microsoft Business Central, NetSuite. We integrated all those different systems. Again, click on the link below to schedule a time with one of our product specialists. And if you want to know how to manage purchase order approval, check this video.